September 16th, 1999.
In 1999 alone, we have watched as innocent people were gunned down while attending school, while walking home from a church or synagogue, while playing at a summer camp, while working in their offices, while delivering mail, and now while worshiping in their church.
One more addition to the litany of gun tragedies. By now, we know what questions to ask.
Are there warning signals? Could some step have been taken? What could have been done at an earlier age?
So why can't anyone agree on the answers? Tonight, gun violence in America. Are there really no solutions?
From ABC News, this is Nightline. Substituting for Ted Koppel and reporting from Washington, Chris Wallace.
And so it has happened once again. After the massacre at Columbine High School and a day trading firm in Atlanta and the Jewish daycare center in Los Angeles, now someone has walked into a church in Fort Worth, Texas, and started shooting. The target, 150 teenagers attending a prayer service. Once again, we are learning about the killer, Larry Ashbrook, a man with no criminal record but a history of mental problems, a man who bought his guns legally. And once again, the Attorney General and the President are calling for action, for some way to stop the carnage. But after Columbine and Atlanta, after Los Angeles and Fort Worth, there doesn't seem much of a chance that Congress will pass new gun control laws. And according to the polls, there is growing doubt among the public about whether new laws can actually stop the violence. Tonight, we'll examine how the debate over gun control is changing, whether there are any solutions. But we begin with the latest from Fort Worth and ABC's Tom Foreman.
On the streets of Fort Worth, a disturbing picture was emerging today. A picture of Gene Ashbrook, a violent and troubled man who lived in this suburban house.
He's trashed his house. I mean, the entire interior of the house has been torn apart.
Neighbors say Ashbrook was obsessed with serial killers, that he was prone to furious rages.
He would go ballistic on his dad. You could hear him across the street hollering back and forth.
They say he sent threatening letters to people he knew.
But I just thought it might be good if you were made cognizant of that.
But police said what may have bothered many here the most, that Ashbrook got the guns he used in his rampage through perfectly legal channels.
To our knowledge, it was a legal transaction. We have no indication that there was anything inappropriate that occurred.
From Littleton to Atlanta, from Jonesboro to L.A., time and again, the gunmen who have struck in such devastating fashion have done so with legally purchased firearms. No wonder gun opponents are once again saying it is way past time for stricter gun laws.
This is a political issue, and politicians are going to have to muster the courage to defy the gun lobby and to do what's right for the American people.
For starters, gun opponents want to close some large loopholes in existing gun law, chief among them private sales. Under current law, private owners can sell guns without background checks, without paperwork, to anyone they choose. Another concern, straw purchases, in which a legal gun buyer buys a weapon for someone who legally cannot buy it. That is already illegal, but it's very hard to prosecute. How hard? Out of 100,000 licensed gun dealers in this country, last year, federal agents took away only 19 licenses.
We don't want to ban guns. We don't want to go into people's homes and take their guns away. We simply want to pass some common sense laws that the police can use.
Still, that is very troubling to people like Bob Norman.
I was driving past a business near the church today, and the flag was at half-staff, and I started to cry.
As deeply disturbed as he is by the shootings here that happened only a few miles from his house, he is even more disturbed that gun opponents are using this as a chance to push for new gun laws. No wonder. He is a promoter of gun shows who says he has considered very seriously whether or not tougher laws are needed.
I ask myself that every day. My wife and I have 2 grandchildren, and you would have to be an insensitive clod not to think about that. But I know that that won't work. Why not? Because the criminals are going to have their guns.
It is worth noting that many people believe guns are only part of the equation when it comes to explaining shootings such as this one. Long-standing cutbacks in mental health programs, which might have helped someone like Gene Ashbrook, may also bear some of the blame.
The state of Texas spends less per capita than any other state on mental health. And that's perhaps allowing a lot of people to slip through what we used to call the safety net.
Still, with so much killing, a basic question remains. Why can't gun supporters and gun opponents find any middle ground to address these problems?
Because I think history has shown that the gun grabbers want to grab the guns, all guns.
My experience is that they are unbelievably rigid and unwilling to compromise, and that they cannot be trusted.
And the violence and fear go on. Today, the Fort Worth police chief said he hopes all of this will not produce measures that are too drastic.
What I would not like us to do as citizens of Fort Worth or as a society in general is to overreact and believe that we've got to cloak ourselves with vests in secure and totally secure environments.
But tonight, as yet another community gathered for a memorial to its victims, it is clear that there is much sadness, much anger, and a growing sense of desperation that somehow something must be done. For Nightline, this is Tom Foreman in Fort Worth, Texas.
Take a look at some results from a recent ABC News Washington Post poll. 90% support background checks at gun shows. 79% support mandatory trigger locks on all stored guns. 77% support a ban on the sale of assault weapons. 75% support registration of all handguns. And 66% support a nationwide ban on gun sales on the internet. We'll be back in a moment.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by First Union.
In the financial world, nothing is permanent but change. The landscape is constantly shifting. Every day, companies are downsizing, seeking the right merger, looking for acquisitions that make sense. Even deceptively simple corrections like debt restructuring can take months and demand a variety of financial products. Today, companies searching for solutions in a changing world are finding them in a place of stability and experience. Come to the financial mountain called First Union. Or if you prefer, the mountain will come to you.
Friday, does a hidden killer lurk on college campuses? What you may not know could protect your children from this deadly threat. A report for every parent on 2020 Friday.
I've had some past credit problems, and getting a car can be a real challenge. Dealers have told me no, but I got a yes from 1-800-GET-A-YES. 1-800-GET-A-YES is a service that has helped over 1 million people just like me find fast, affordable auto financing.
No one wanted to give me a car loan because of my past problems. I was about to give up when a friend told me about 1-800-GET-A-YES, and they said yes to me, fast.
Got your credit in a mess, dial 1-800-GET-A-YES.
For 500 years, I've walked the earth looking for my lost love. Now, I'm here, lurking in the shadows, stalking the innocent.
Joining us here in Washington are Robert Cottrell, who teaches criminal law at George Washington University. Charles Ramsey, who served for 29 years on the Chicago police force before becoming the chief of police here in the nation's capital. And Ron Brownstein, the national political reporter for the Los Angeles Times. Chief Ramsey, let's start, if we can, with last night's tragedy. Is there any gun control idea out there that could have stopped Larry Ashbrook from walking into that church and killing people?
I doubt it. You have a mentally disturbed individual who's bent for whatever reason on committing that kind of crime. If he wasn't able to purchase a gun legally, odds are he probably would have found a way to get it in the black market.
So if there is realistically no way to head off people like Larry Ashbrook, what should the country be hoping to accomplish through gun control?
But this individual isn't the norm, and I think that's what's important. You're going to have some cases that are going to come about that are just going to be unusual. I think gun control is very important. I think for the vast majority of cases that we handle, gun control can work and does work.
Well, if you can be a little bit more specific, what kinds of things specifically could help you?
Well, the background checks is a good example. I mean, in many instances, just as a mere background check would at least make it a lot more difficult for a criminal to get his hands on a gun. That would at least stand a chance of preventing some crimes from occurring. Certainly, not allowing criminals with prior convictions to be in possession of handguns is another measure that I think is very important and would probably go a long way in reducing some of the crime.
Ron Brownstein, after each of these tragedies, there's a big public outcry, crackdown on guns, but when it gets to Congress, not much seems to happen. Why not?
Well, that's right. I think that there are a variety of reasons why you don't see the broad poll numbers translate into specific legislation. Start with the basics. At the moment, you have a Republican-controlled House and Senate, and ideologically, Republicans are generally cool to these kinds of extensions of federal control over the day-to-day lives of people that they see gun control as being. Secondly, the NRA, the National Rifle Association, is a very effective lobbying institution. They're very good, not only in the way, effective in the way they spend their money, but also in generating voter and grassroots pressure on legislators. And finally, Chris, I think that, the reality is that you have, I think, a widening regional variation on these issues. The broad poll numbers, the needle is clearly tilting toward greater support for gun control, but there's still a lot of differences between the intensity of support for gun control, say, along the coasts, and in the heartland, the great L that runs from the mountain states and the plain states across the deep south. You have a much more entrenched gun culture in those states, and you see legislators from those states much more leery in both parties about supporting gun control. When you net all that out, there's still a narrow anti-gun control majority in the Congress on most issues.
Ron, let me ask you about another factor that we found in that recent ABC News poll. When we asked people whether they favor stricter gun control laws, it was very sizable, 2-to-1, 63% to 35%. But when we asked them whether they thought stricter gun control would actually reduce violent crime, it was evenly split, 50% to 48%. So doesn't that reduce the pressure out there if people don't think it's going to work anyway?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I think those results, first of all, those results are not surprising. They're pretty consistent with what we've seen over the last several years. And I don't really think they're contradictory. What they tell us, above all, is that Americans quite correctly see gun violence as a complex problem without any single solution. If you ask in an open-ended question, people say they want to see greater efforts to strengthen the family, greater efforts to remove violence from TV and movies, tougher sentencing, but also gun control. They don't see these, Chris, I think, as incompatible choices. It isn't as if you believe that you have to strengthen the family, that means that you don't want background checks at gun shows. I think people see these things as all part of a package that has to be done, and even then, we may be disappointed in the result.
Professor Cottrell, I gather you think that the people are onto something when they express some serious doubts about more gun control laws.
Yes, in part. If I might return to something that Chief Ramsey was saying. I think certainly we're all shocked and horrified by tragedies such as the one that occurred at Fort Worth and occurred at Columbine. The question is, should our shock at those tragedies obscure the fact that those particular kinds of actions are going to be very hard to control by any conceivable gun control regime, and might stop us from looking at what we can do to control gun violence. One of the difficulties I have with the idea of, well, let us have simply more and more gun control, I'm not opposed to all forms of gun control. I believe, for example, in background checks, making sure that people with felony convictions should not have guns. But one of the things we have to realize is an awful lot of what we do in the name of gun control is controlling essentially law-abiding citizens who are going to go through the hoops and make the background checks and whatnot. We need to do more to control the real sources of gun violence in our country, which in fact are career criminals.
But Professor, when we talk about some of these more broader-based things, and for instance, the administration now is talking about safety locks on triggers or a 72-hour background check at gun shows, is that really so oppressive?
Well, let's stop and think about it. My understanding with a 72-hour background check on gun shows, the first question we always have to ask is, what is it going to do? What do we hope that this is going to do? You know, is this in fact going to lead to a reduction in gun violence, or is it simply going to be more wheel spinning on our part? Trigger locks, I think, are a more complex issue. I think people certainly should, if they have children, have their guns locked or stored away in locked containers. But also, one of the things I think you have to realize is that the more a gun is locked, the less you're likely to be able to use it for self-defense.
Gentlemen, I have to break in here, but when we return, I want to ask you all about some other ideas about how to stop the violence and also about how big this issue will be in the 2000 presidential campaign. And we'll continue our discussion in a moment.
Bill gave this to me as a birthday present.
Fire's my life. I fought them, I investigated them.
Hey guys, this is a drill. Come on down.
I'm sick and tired of getting toy fire trucks for Christmas.
I'm Bill Fries. I'm a fire safety specialist with Liberty Mutual Insurance.
Every 78 seconds, a home catches fire. So the more we research, the safer we can help you make your home. The more lives we save.
At Liberty Mutual, we have hundreds of experts helping you live a safer, more secure life. It's insurance in action.
Did I mention my sprinkler head collection?
My furniture needs can be summed up in one word: storage. It's color and texture that create an overall design scheme. I've always been drawn to the simplicity of sacred design. Introducing EA Kids by Ethan Allen. I've always believed that form should follow function. Everyone's at home with Ethan Allen, even kids. It's the comforter, really, that ties the whole room together. There's a sale on now.
Ask your doctor about Viagra.
Excuse me, what are you doing?
I'm calling long distance with one of those 1010 numbers. Makes you crazy.
Oh, it's crazy.
It's not.
It'll make you nuts. But with the new AT&T One Rate 7-cent plan, calls are just 7 cents a minute.
Yeah, but you can only call at certain times, right?
7 cents a minute all day, every day.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week? That's simple.
Yes, it is.
So I don't have to use those 1010 numbers ever again?
No, you don't.
All day, every day. Call 1-800-41-RATE to enroll.
Excuse me, what are you doing?
From the producers of 30-something and Shakespeare in Love. Beautifully acted, sharply written. Once and Again, Tuesdays this fall on ABC.
Oh! New Grape Nuts O's even surprised the folks here at Post. The wholesome grains of grape nuts baked into light, crispy O's with a touch of brown sugar. A taste that's light and toasty and naturally sweet. Oh, from grape nuts? Oh! Yep, we had the same reaction. New Grape Nuts O's cereal. It's a whole new spin on grape nuts.
And we're back again with Robert Cottrell, Charles Ramsey, and Ron Brownstein. Chief Ramsey, in Washington, D.C. recently, you had a gun buyback, and very successful. You got 2,000 guns, but obviously, or at least we think, that the Larry Ashbrooks of the world wouldn't be in that line waiting to sell their guns. So who are you targeting in an effort like that?
Well, it was actually almost 3,000 guns that we were able to get as a result of the gun buyback program. But I think that a mistake is made when we think that the only population that we're trying to reach is just a criminal population. You have a lot of situations where guns are used not by people who are quote-unquote criminals, but people who just for a moment resort to a violent act. An example would be domestic violence. If you've got a gun in the household, and if you've got two people in an argument, a gun could be introduced. If you've got a situation with a person driving down the street suddenly cut off, if they got a gun in the glove box, we have this phenomenon that we now call road rage. And that's not even talking about accidental shootings where just a child finds a gun and accidentally shoots a sibling. So there's a lot of violence that's caused by handguns or people using handguns that I think we can do a lot to reduce. So it's taken a little chunk at a time out of the problem. Some of it is through gun buyback, some could be through gun control. I think it's a combination of factors.
Chief, let me look at that. Let's look again at that ABC News poll and some of the ideas that the public seemed to think were good ideas for gun control. Background checks at gun shows, mandatory trigger locks, ban on assault weapons, handgun registration, ban internet gun sales. What do you think of those? How much would they help?
Well, I think it would help a great deal, and I think that when you take a look at those numbers, you really have to ask, why are we even having this debate? I mean, if our elected officials are there to serve and to really fulfill the wishes of the public that puts them in office, I don't know why we're sitting here having this debate, because those numbers are really, quite frankly, overwhelming. And I guess it just points to the fact that politics and public safety doesn't always mix.
Professor Cottrell, I mean, we're not talking here about banning guns or even banning concealed weapons. Aren't there some sensible ideas there?
Well, let's look at some of these ideas. For example, you mentioned registration. Who is going to register their guns? And, you know, the ordinary citizen will, the law-abiding citizen will. Criminals won't register their guns, so what use is it going to be? What effect is it going to have? What, at the end of the day, is going to be the difference?
Well, Chief Ramsey?
Well, being able to trace a gun's history and find out who the owner is. As I said before, there's always going to be an element that's not going to conform, and I don't care if you say you want background checks or if you want registration. They may not do it. It doesn't mean that gun registration is a bad idea. We have to register automobiles. So what's wrong with registering a gun?
Well, first of all, one of the problems that we have with this is we know that if we have a system of registration, we may be able to trace guns of law-abiding citizens, but criminals will simply get it on the black market. I would disagree, by the way, with Chief Ramsey that a substantial problem is the ordinary citizen having a gun. The substantial problem is people with criminal backgrounds, histories of mental instability, and histories of violence. Those are the people we should be trying to control.
Well, it's really both. I mean, I've been in this business 30 years, and I've been to many a crime scene, and I'm here to tell you that the problem isn't just limited to a group of people that we consider to be hardened criminals. There are a lot of people that just in a moment of rage get involved in arguments, resort to firearms, and we wind up with a homicide or a very serious injury to another person as a result.
Professor, let me bring in Ron Brownstein here if I can. Ron, we're gearing up now for the 2000 presidential campaign. How big an issue will this be?
Probably pretty substantial. I think you're seeing two separate movements that point in the same direction. First, in the Democratic primary, both Al Gore and Bill Bradley are going well beyond what we're discussing today in terms of their proposals for further gun control. Bill Bradley is talking about handgun registration. Al Gore is talking about licensing handguns, either one of which, should they win the general election, would be an enormous legislative fight. On the other side, I think all the Democrats see gun control as potentially one of the principal vulnerabilities of Governor Bush. Texas is a state in that conservative L from the mountain states through the deep south where the gun culture is very strong. He has signed a legislation down there that allows people to carry concealed weapons. He signed a bill this year that barred cities from suing gun manufacturers, the top priority of the NRA. Inside the state of Texas, those are fairly mainstream positions, but you take them outside of Texas, you move them to California or the suburbs of Illinois or the suburbs of Michigan, and I think Democrats believe that is going to be a principal vulnerability. Governor Bush is trying to, defend himself. He's taking some moderate positions on raising the age of handgun ownership, not supporting a repeal of the assault weapon ban, but the existing record in Texas, I think, Chris, is going to be an irresistible target for Democrats in 2000.
But you know, Ron, in that ABC News poll, we asked people about issues in the 2000 campaign. Gun control ranked 12th of 15 issues, so it doesn't seem to be much of a priority, apparently, because you know, going back to the other result, they don't think that it's going to have much effect anyway. So is it, you know, maybe something they know when they see the difference? Is it the kind of thing they'll actually vote on?
Well, I think that it's a mistake to assume that many people vote on any single issue. I think what increasingly happens in politics is that campaigns try to use a whole complex of issues to paint a picture of the candidate around which voters will either say, yeah, that's me, I identify with that, or it's not. I think for the Democrats, they will try to use Bush's positions, if he is the nominee, on guns, abortion, school vouchers, the environment, a whole series of things to move him out of the center and make him less acceptable to suburban swing voters. And in that litany, Chris, I do think that guns is part of that and a central element of that for Democrats if it's going to work at all.
Chief Ramsey, we have less than 30 seconds left. As you go about your business fighting crime here in the nation's capital, how much are you counting on new gun control measures to help you?
Well, I'd like to be able to think that I could count on gun control measures to be able to do it, but I don't think any one measure is going to be the end solution. I think we've got to recognize that we live in a very violent society, and we've got to change the attitudes of a lot of people and look at this whole picture, not just a piece of it.
Chief Ramsey, Ron Brownstein, Professor Cottrell, thank you all very much for joining us tonight. And I'll be back in a moment.
Critics are giving For Love of the Game a standing ovation. Exhilarating. The most inspiring film of the year. Not to be missed. Kevin Costner, For Love of the Game. Rated PG-13. Starts tomorrow.
We interrupt this program for this important announcement. MCI now offers 5 cents a minute every day. That's just 5 cents every evening and all weekend long. Presenting the billboard of the millennium. Let her rip. MCI, 5 cents every day. That's one powerful message. Call 1-800-EVERY-DAY to join.
Style. It hit me the minute I walked in. It dripped from the chandeliers. It oozed from the upholstery.
Avenue. Sheer glamour at a very seductive price. New from Ethan Allen. There's a sale on now.
Saturday. Only America's Broadcasting Company can bring you the crowning of Miss America 2000. It's the thrill of victory and the agony of high heels. Get ready for a special performance by 98 Degrees, a hot new look, and swimsuit rules more daring than ever. Live from Atlantic City, Donnie and Marie host the 79th annual Miss America pageant, Saturday, 8/7 Central on ABC.
Are you ready to hit the road?
Ever wish the world were more solid under your feet?
When the going gets tough, is a driver's seat the only seat for you?
Are you ready for something you've always wanted? Then get to the Pontiac Hit the Road Summer Sell Down for 0% APR financing or $1,000 cash back on any solid 99 Grand Am.
Hit the road for Pontiac driving excitement.
See your dealer today.
What are you waiting for? This week at Just for Feet, we're carrying it even further.
The 50% off clothing sale just got bigger.
The 60% off clothing sale.
Everything that was 50% off, now 60% off. Warm-ups, jackets, jerseys, t-shirts, shorts, and more.
Even casual clothing.
60% off.
Famous name brand.
Now 60% off.
On every single piece of clothing in the store.
Plus thousands of your favorite shoes are on sale, too.
The 60% off clothing sale.
This week at Just for Feet.
Where the 13th pair is free.
Hurry in while selection is still great.
Tomorrow on Nightline, he was trapped for 4 days in the rubble of the Turkish earthquake. No food, no water, and still he lived to tell his extraordinary story. Buried alive, the Nightline Friday night special.
It felt like I was in a sarcophagus alive. I really felt like I was in a coffin. Since I've always been a believer, I began to repeat all the prayers that I knew. I begged God to give me strength and the ability to use the mind that He had given me in a positive way. I convinced myself that I had to resist and stay alive.
And that's our report for tonight. I'm Chris Wallace in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
Nightline is always on with abcnews.com, now part of the Go Network. If you'd like a transcript or video cassette of this or any other edition of Nightline, please dial 1-800-CALL-ABC.
Nightline has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source. abcnews.com, now a part of the Go Network.
Atlanta, Dallas, Monday night at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific.
Regis and Kathy Lee, weekdays at 9 on News 2. Now, News 2 at 10. First, fast, accurate.
Floyd has weakened, but it's still packing a punch. The former hurricane, downgraded to a tropical storm, is pounding the Northeast with high winds and heavy rains. Schools have closed and hundreds of flights are grounded.
It's definitely inconvenient, and I'll make sure that they reimburse me.
And tonight, the effects of the massive storm are being felt right here.